You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to have back on the Goldstein on Gelt show Sherrie Miller, who's a very experienced dating coach and marriage counselor, and she leads an organization called Choice of the Heart, in Hebrew, Bechirat Talev. Sherrie, a pleasure to have you back.
Thank you, Doug. Pleasure to be here.
First off, before I even get into the questions, I just want to let people know that if they missed Sherrie's previous interview, they can download that at goldsteinongelt.com if they just want to hear more of what she said. Sherrie, tell us, what is Bechirat Talev all about?
Well, Bechirat Talev came about as a response to my work in the school system as a guidance counselor. There were many children who were suffering terribly when their families were disintegrating and the divorce rate was rising steadily. And I noticed that the parents are not getting the right skills that they need. And so we developed this nonprofit organization, Lori Lurie and myself, to provide engaged and newlywed couples with vital tools and skills that they need to build a healthy and thriving marriage. You know, Doug, marriage doesn't come with an instruction manual. And these skills are not taught in school, and they don't come naturally to most of the people out there. But fortunately, the skills can and must be learned, and they must be acquired.
And do you think that young people are actually anxious to learn this, or do they kind of feel, they know how to do it?
Well, you're asking an excellent question. Young people who have not run into any interference or haven't had much in the way of conflict are pretty sure that they know what to do, and unfortunately they get to us after the problems start raising their heads, and then they have pain and wounds, and then they come, and then it's a little bit harder. We want to start them off with the right habits and get a good pattern going. The Torah says the first year a man is not allowed to go to the army. The first year of marriage, he's got to be home so they can get to know each other and learn and develop the right patterns from the get-go.
Okay, so this is actually a financial show, Goldstein on
Right.
Gelt. So let's talk about some of the common financial problems that couples have, especially when they're starting out. What have you seen?
Okay, well, briefly, there's so much to talk about, and because time is brief, I'm going to limit my remarks on the issues, the problems, to a couple of minutes. The most common financial problems for couples were gleaned from a study that was done by Professor Olson, and he took a poll of 50,000 couples. That's a lot of couples. Wow. And from that poll, the result was that there were 5 financial issues, the top 5, I should say, that cause unhappy marriages and ultimately lead to divorce. Now, the first issue indicated that 72% of all couples experience problems because one thinks that the other one should be more careful about spending. Okay, so
I've seen that. I've seen that in my own practice.
Right. This is a common thing, as we can see. 72% is a very high number. 71% of all couples actually lacked a savings account, and they don't even have a plan about how to save, which is a major issue in finance for couples. 63% of couples polled said they had problems deciding on what is important to purchase. Whether it be a washing machine or the other one wants a car or a smaller item. They had many arguments about what needed to be purchased. And 56% of couples had major debts, while 52% of all the couples were dealing with overspending, which is caused by the overuse of credit cards. Now, these 5 items are very, very common amongst most couples, and what we try to do in our workshop is get couples to understand their relationship to money, the way they handle money, and the way they learned how to handle money. This is really the key, because when we get married, we think we're starting from a clean page. And what we're really bringing with us is the values and the lessons of money that we learned at home, in what we call our family of origin.
So do you think, or have you found that when couples are getting started, I'd like to actually focus on a few of these. Let's focus on the one that 56% of them had debts that they were dealing with. Obviously, they came into the marriages in many cases with these debts. Is this something that young couples let each other know before they get to the chuppah?
Well, some couples do, and I advise all couples to be open and honest about their debts before marriage. And many of them are students and have student loans. And believe it or not, there are a lot of other couples who get into debts because they haven't been accustomed to working with a budget. They don't have any sense of what, as we spoke, what is important right now to buy, what is not important. These subjects of the subject of finance just doesn't really come up while they're dating, you know? I mean, it's not the most fascinating thing to talk about on dates.
Hey, you're talking to a financial planner here. Watch your
Well, I recommend that they see you when they do have their issues, but before that, it's assumed that, you know, that will all work itself out.
Right, everyone believes it'll be okay.
Everyone believes it'll be okay.
I just want to reintroduce you. We're talking with Sherrie Miller. She's been previously on the Goldstein on Gelt show. She's a marriage counselor, but she specializes in a certain area, which is trying to teach young couples before they get married the tools that they'll need to have a successful marriage. In the first few minutes, we were just talking about some of the problems that young couples have. For example, they think the other one spends badly, they have no financial plan, they have a lot of debt, they have a lot of trouble deciding what to buy. What does that really mean?
Well, as I mentioned, a lot of our values in life and in finance particularly come from the family of origin, the home that we grew up in. And one family, spending was frivolous, money was spent on luxuries. And another family, money was spent for necessities, and the car just had to get us where we needed to go. It didn't matter what the kind of car was. So basically, what Arendt and Pauker say in a book called Their First Year of Marriage, there are unexpressed psychological and emotional needs that manifest themselves through unhealthy spending habits. There are many emotional effects that take place when people are spending money they're not even aware of, such as a need for status. You know, when you talk about debts and you talk about overuse of credit cards, well, if a person defines himself as somebody who, or feels himself as someone who has low self-esteem, he might feel that he's craving a Jaguar to prove to the world that he really is a success. And that is a product of the home that he grew up in, that his dad was really successful and he drove a Jaguar. And now, you know, if I don't drive one, then I'm really nothing.
Okay, so practically, how can you get a young couple to communicate about this issue? This is complex, what you're saying. Now you're going to sell, say, to a 20-year-old boy and girl, you know, this is what you have to look at, and this is how you communicate. What practical guidance would you say to them so that they could deal with this?
Right. Well, that is the first step, is making them aware of the major issues. They're helping them to identify the financial difficulties that they are having. You know, if it's one spending and the other feeling it's out of sync with their budget, or if it's using the credit card too often, those practical things, we show that those 5 things are common to all couples, and those things are that they shouldn't feel that they are on the brink of divorce if they have these issues, that these issues can be dealt with. And the way we deal with them is by connecting them and giving them an opportunity in the workshop to really explore their own families of origin and get a handle on what it is that is motivating them to go out and spend this money. I mean, just like overeating, people tend to overeat because they have a psychological and emotional need that isn't being met, and the food becomes a means to fill a void. If we don't understand what unconscious needs we have, we'll continue to overeat and use food to fill that void. And the same thing with money. We use it to fill certain needs. And I'd just like to bring up a certain couple that I happened to work with recently to illustrate the point. I mean, the families are different, and the most common differences are some families are spenders, they're spontaneous, they throw money around, and others are savers, and they're very conservative, well organized, and they feel that they want to save that money for security and for events that are unforeseen in the future. So when you have these two opposite people, a man and a woman, and they're coming from two different worlds, it's very, very difficult. So I just want to mention that this couple was referred to me by a very altruistic divorce lawyer who noticed that there was still a spark that was alive in this couple.
All right.
And he recommended that before they finalize the divorce, they should go to counseling. So for confidentiality's sake, we'll call them John and Linda, and they were married for 2 years. John owned a clothing store, and Linda worked as an administrative assistant. And at the end of the month, Linda's paycheck was spent, and so she approached John for some cash because she needed some more things for the house. And at first he gave her the extra cash, but after a while he started to wonder, where's all the money going from Linda's paycheck? And after a while, John claimed that his business was bad and he couldn't give her any more money. He wanted to know what happened to all of her money. And he refused to lay out a single dollar and kept demanding her expenses, and she kept refusing, claiming that John did not disclose what he earned each month, and she noticed that he had money for things that he wanted, like expensive wine or a fishing trip with his buddies, so why should she have to tell him what she was spending her money on? And this downward cycle continued as Linda began to distrust John, and she demanded to know his business records. John refused, knowing that if he gave her money, she would just spend it and keep demanding more. So what do we do practically? In this sense, we helped the couple see that actually Linda's family was struggling financially, and she could never buy herself anything that was not in the budget. And she had this need to go out for enjoyment and just to buy things and to buy her friends gifts, while John came from an affluent home, and his parents had money for wine and different things, and also his mother was on an allowance. His father controlled the cash flow, and so that was what he was used to. So the goal is beyond just identifying what their financial issue is to look back another step and find out what is motivating them to behave this way, and understanding each other's reference of family of origin, so that they can now be free to start to take the responsibility of creating a healthy financial relationship.
Wow, good for you. Good for you for bringing them back together. That is really something.
That is the, families are so complex. All this information that we discuss is unconscious. This is something that, they learn as children. And because their families are so complex and different, we have to see how their parents valued and handled money and get to the root of their differences, because the greater the differences in financial habits, as you can imagine, the greater the potential for conflict.
Right, for sure. I certainly would say I've seen that as well in my own day job as a financial advisor. I do the radio gig only once a week, but I spend a lot of time dealing with couples and the investments, and just the types of things you described at the beginning are exactly what seems to weave its way into the fabric of all marriages. Anyway, listen, Sherrie, we are just about out of time. We've been talking with Sherrie Miller, who runs an organization called Bechirat Talev, Choice of the Heart, which helps young couples to learn how to deal with each other in marriage, not only in money, but that's obviously a very important part. Sherrie, in the last few seconds, just tell me, how can people follow your work?
Well, we are, you can look on our website. We are we have workshops, 6 weeks, 2 hours a session that deal with the different components of a good marriage, like communication, conflict resolution. We are unique because part of my passion is about bringing in and integrating compelling Torah sources, especially regarding money, where money is really a means to an end. As in our world, we see how much money has defined success, and we really see from the pasuk Ezu Ashir Hasamech Bechelko, the rich person or the wealthy person is really the one who's free to enjoy what he has. And when couples can step back and not put extra pressure on each other by having these desires, you know, the word kesef, money in Hebrew, comes from kisufim. Kisufim means longing. And we should really go deep into ourselves and say, what is it that we really long for? What do we really want? And most couples I speak to overall want a happy, healthy marriage. And being able to meet the needs of our partners, whether it be emotionally, physically, or financially, we come together. And when we teach the couples that all their major financial decisions have to be worked through as a team. Mm-hmm. They're together because financial decisions are a very big part of marriage, and they will work much, much smoother and healthier when the couples understand each other's backgrounds and work together to secure their future.
Okay, Sherrie, listen, we are out of time. Thank you so much, Sherrie Miller from Choice of the Heart, Bechirat Talev.
Thank you so much, Doug. All the best.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt show.